Kap Dwa, the mysterious mummy of a two-headed giant. This is by Xi Luan, Star Nguyen. The legend says that Kap Dwa was a two-headed Patagonian giant with a height of 12 feet or 3.66 meters, who once lived in the jungles of Argentina, South America. The history behind Kap Dwa. The Mummy of Kap Dwa, Baltimore, Maryland, in Bob Sideshow, The Antique Man Limited, owned by Robert Gerber and his wife. The creature's legend begins in 1673, where the giant of over 12 feet with two heads was captured by Spanish sailors and set captive on their ship. The Spaniards lashed him with to the mainmast, but he broke free, being a giant, and during the ensuing battle suffered a fatal injury. They pierced his heart with a spear until his death, but before that the giant had already claimed 4 Spanish soldiers' lives. Now, when that happened, then what happened to Kap Dwa is not exactly clear, but his naturally mummified body was said to be displayed in various places in sideshows. In 1900, the mummy of Kap Dwa entered the Edwardian horror circuit, and over the years was passed from showman to showman, eventually ending up at Weston's Burnbeck Pier in 1914. After spending the next 45 years on display in North Somerset, England, old Kap Dwa was purchased by one Lord Thomas Howard in 1959, and following a few more handoffs, he ultimately ended up in Baltimore, Maryland, of all places. He now rests in the bizarre collection of oddities that is Bob's Sideshow at the Antique Man Limited in Baltimore, owned by Robert Gerber and his wife. The mummified remains of Kap Dwa are believed to be a fabricated hoax, although it is still a mystery. The Patagonians, or Patagonian giants, were a race of giant humans rumored to be living in Patagonia and described in early European accounts by explorers who first saw them. I support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box. They were said to have exceeded at least double normal height, with some accounts giving them up to 12 to 15 feet. That's 3.7 to 4.6 meters or even more. Tales of these people would take a hold over European concepts of the region for some 250 years. The first mention of these people came from the voyage of Portuguese sailor Ferdinand Magellan and his crew, who claimed to have seen them while exploring the coastline of South America en route to the Maluku Islands in their circumnavigation of the world in the 1520s. Antonio Pigafetta, one of the expedition's few survivors and the chronicler of Magellan's expedition, wrote in his account that about their encounters with natives twice as normal person's height. He said, "One day, we suddenly saw a naked man of giant stature on the shore of the port, dancing, singing, and throwing dust on his head. The Captain General, that is Magellan, sent one of our men to the giant so that he might perform the same actions as a sign of peace. Having done that, the man led the giant to an islet where the Captain General was waiting. When the giant was in the Captain General's and our presence, he marveled greatly and made signs with one finger raised upward, believing that we had come from the sky. He was so tall that we reached only to his waist, and he was well proportioned." End quote. Later, Sebald de Weert, a Dutch captain associated with exploration of the coast of South America and the Falkland Islands south of Argentina in 1600, and his several crew claimed to have seen members of a, quote, race of giants, end quote, while there. De Weert described a particular incident when he was with his men in boats rowing to an island in the Magellan Strait. The Dutch claimed to have seen 7 odd-looking boats approaching with their full of naked giants. These giants supposedly had long hair and reddish-brown skin and were aggressive towards the crew. Now, is Kap Dwa real? Kap Dwa has both supporters and detractors. There are the taxidermy truthers, and there are the people that believe this to be a real body. On the real side, several sources report no obvious evidence of taxidermy. One source claims that Johns Hopkins University students did an MRI on the body of Kap Dwa, and according to the article in 14 Times, Frank Eddy remembers seeing it in Blackpool around 1960. He said there were no signs of sutures or other joints, even though the body was largely unclothed. In the 1930s, 2 doctors and a radiologist reportedly inspected it in Weston and found no perceptual evidence of it being a fake. However, the conflicting origin stories that the status of Kap Dwa is a sideshow attraction, of course, immediately damage its credibility in some points. We believe if it was really a giant's mummy, then it should be displayed in a reputed museum and should be better analyzed by today's mainstream scientists. It seems that Kap Dwa's DNA analysis has not been yet conducted. So as long as these tests are not being done, the mummy of Kap Dwa completely remains an unresolved mystery, of course. So we know that from what the article says, one of the people that examined this found that there were no sutures, and they found that it was not a hoax. Of course, the scientists have yet to get to the bottom of examining this properly, even doing a DNA analysis on it. So these Patagonian giants were actually found to have existed. Giants on the earth. The English sailors offered bread to the Patagonian women, fortis pis to voyaggio in turno al mondo. The first Italian, the edition of John Byron's A Voyage Around the World in his majestic ship, the Dolphin. Magellan and his men stopped on the beaches of South America, went inland to explore, and as they explored, it said they encountered natives that were twice the size of a normal man. It's probably because a few of the indigenous people in the region, namely the Tehuelche, do happen to be taller than the average European was at that time. The height difference may have been exaggerated, leading to the long-standing European myth that Patagonia was a land of giants. So is it possible, though, that there may have been a few real giants in Patagonia and that Kap Dwa is an example of them? Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. This is on Collective Spark.